Okay, we're looking at stave 3 now, and it's the present. And having established this amazing, vivid world of Christmas in England at this time and the pleasure of the present, we are now going to see what is the Cratchit life really like. And what we learn is, despite being very poor, they live with great luxury and love. They're rich in love. Love, family, and they have real suffering with Tiny Tim. And, his suffering by no fault of his own, is a really important thing in the novel because it creates a real sense of sympathy and love for this childlike, innocent character. So let's look at what he sees when he sees the Cratchits. Then up rose Mrs. Cratchit, Cratchit's wife, dressed out but poorly in twice turned gown, but brave in ribbons. Twice turned down. This is, she repairs her clothes. I don't know what brave here means, but brave in ribbons, I guess, to make it look fancy. You get ribbons, which are cheap and make a goodly show for sixpence. So it's a good way to make your clothes seem better. Assisted by Belinda Cratchit, second of her daughters, also brave in ribbons, while Master Peter Cratchit plunged a fork into the saucepan and potatoes, and getting the corners of his monstrous shirt collar, Bob's private property conferred upon his son and heir in honor of the day. So here we get shared clothing, even. And all of them, you can just see this finely drawn portrait of their poverty through their clothes themselves. He's so gallantly attired, he's dressed like a gentleman. Yearned to show his linens in fashionable parks. He's really chuffed. He's really excited. He wants to show off how grown up and amazing he is by wearing his father's shirt. And now we have two small Cratchits. They came tearing in, screaming that outside the baker's they had smelt the goose and known it for their own, and basking in luxurious thoughts of sage and onion, these young Cratchits danced about the table and exalted Master Peter Cratchit to the skies, while he blew the fire until the slow potatoes bubbling up knocked loudly at the saucepan lid to be let out and peeled. This is just a remarkable paragraph once again. Description, poverty we can see in their clothing, in their imagination. Peter is gallant. He wants to go to fashionable parks. They're luxurious in food and smell. They're exalted. These words all suggest kind of fantasy a little bit, how they think of themselves. They are very poor, but they have a rich kind of imagination of what could be. And I get the sense already of a small community, everybody working together, loving one another. What has ever got your precious father then, and your brother Tiny Tim, and Martha wasn't as late last Christmas by half an hour? Here's Martha. So Martha's come, and she's late, and she wants to play a little trick on Bob. So she hides. So Martha hides herself. Some things that are worth thinking about is the reason she's late is work. We had a deal of work to finish up last night and had to clear away this morning, Mother. It doesn't matter, just as long as you come, sit by the fire and have a warm. No, there's Father coming, and so they want to play a trick. But here we have this idea of work, family, Christmas, all of that at play. So she hides herself. He comes home. Look at his clothes as well, threadbare, just so used up. They're just, you can see the threads. So he's it's been darned and brushed to look seasonable. Okay, so his clothes are broken, they're done, but they're made to look as if they're new and okay. And then here comes this amazing character, Tiny Tim, upon his shoulder. He's so small, and he has a crutch, so he's disabled, and his limbs supported by an iron frame. So we get this idea of a boy in irons with a crutch, really small, quite vulnerable. I've deleted it here, but he basically gets angry that Martha isn't there, and then he finds her, and they all have a big laugh because he can't believe that Martha wouldn't be here for Christmas. Then Mrs. Cratchit asks, "Did Tiny Tim behave?" Which I'm sure is meant to be ironic, because of course he behaves. He's Tiny Tim. He's this perfect angelic creature. And here Bob's just hugging his daughter to its heart content. There's love and family and joy. As good as gold. Somehow he gets thoughtful sitting. He's so thoughtful sitting by himself and thinks the strangest things you ever heard. He told me coming home that he hoped that people saw him in the church because he was a cripple. Not appropriate language for today. Perhaps in the Victorian times, nothing was really made to accommodate the handicapped. But not by the state. Maybe with charities or wealthy families, but nothing really. And it might be pleasant to see them, to remember upon Christmas Day, who made lame beggars walk, blind. Who made them? That's Jesus. So Jesus, sorry. He wants that to be remembered. And, religion comes at few moments in this book, but here might be a place where he wants people to remember that. And when they look at him, we'll talk about how it is that, in Christianity, disability can be solved or fixed or healed. And that we remember this is a big part of the religion, which will not happen in this book and is a fantasy. But what we can talk about is love and charity and all the values of Christianity, and Tiny Tim wants those to be remembered. Here we get the really famous description of this goose, this small little goose, but look at the way it's described. It's as if they're millionaires. Mrs. Cratchit made the gravy hissing hot. Peter mashed the potatoes with incredible vigor. Miss Belinda sweetened up the applesauce. Martha dusted the hot plates. Bob took Tiny Tim beside him in a tiny corner at the table. The two young Cratchits set chairs for everybody, not forgetting themselves and mounting guard upon their post. It was so funny. The protecting. Oops. Here we have everyone really has a role. They're doing something. At last the dishes were set on, the grace was said. It was succeeded by a breathless pause as Mrs. Cratchit, looking slowly all along on and the carving knife, prepared to plunge it into the breast. But when she did, and when the long-expected gush of stuffing issued forth, one murmur of delight arose all around the board, and even Tiny Tim, excited by the two young Cratchits, beat on the table. Look at him. He's so over it. Beat on the table, feebly cried hurrah. He's weak, but excited. It's so fun. It's such a festival. It's so filled with tradition and meaning. There never was such a goose. Bob said he didn't believe there ever was such a goose cooked. Its tenderness and flavor, size and cheapness, these are interesting, were the themes of universal admiration, eked out by applesauce and mashed potatoes. It was a sufficient dinner for the whole family. There are clues here, right? Sufficient, enough. Not excess, it's just enough. They are poor, but it doesn't matter. It's enough. They hadn't ate it all at last, yet everyone had enough. Everyone had enough, and the youngest Cratchits in particular were steeped in sage and onion to the eyebrows. So this is not about not excess, how the poor, through love and family, can make anything meaningful. How these misery guts like Scrooge can have everything and still be unhappy, and these folk with so little can be so pleased. And it continues. But now the plates were being changed by Miss Belinda. Miss Cratchit left the room too nervous to bear witness, to take the pudding up and bring it in. So here comes the pudding. It's dessert. It's on fire, I think. I don't know. Let me just see. It's a really big deal. It's a big festival for the pudding itself to come in. It's nerve-wracking. Suppose it should not be done enough. Suppose it should break in turning out. Suppose somebody should have got over the wall of the backyard and stolen it. Oh, this is just such ridiculous anxieties that she has about it. All sorts of horrors were supposed. This is all just comedy because they have real problems, but now it's like pretend problems. Hello, a great deal of steam. The pudding was out of the copper, a smell like a washing day. There was the cloth, a smell like an eating house, and a pastry cook's next door to each other with a laundress next door to that. That was the pudding. In half a minute, Mrs. Cratchit entered, flushed, but smiling proudly. For it is pride the mother feels for a meal like this, where everyone's fed, and it's so exciting. Look at this description, like a speckled cannonball. That's fun. Blazing, so it is on fire with brandy, and a little holly on top. Just amazing. Oh, what a wonderful pudding, Bob Cratchit said, and calmly too, and he regarded it as the greatest success achieved by Mrs. Cratchit since their marriage. Jokes, comedy, jokes. Mrs. Cratchit said now the weight was off her mind. She would confess she had her doubts about the quantity of flour. Everybody had something to say about it, but nobody said or thought it was at all small for a large family. But it seems like it is. Is it? Is it small? It seems it is, but enough. It would be heresy to say it's small, and they would have blushed. Shame, the shame of being poor. I think that little, this idea of shame, they don't want to be considered or treated as inferior in any way at all. At last, the dinner was all done. The cloth was cleared, the hearth swept, and the fire made up. The compound in the jug being tested and considered perfect. Apples and oranges were put on the table, a shovelful of chestnuts on the fire. Then all the Cratchit family drew around the hearth, around the fire. And Cratchit called a circle, meaning half of one. And Cratchit's elbow stood the family display of glass. 2 tumblers, a custard cup without a handle. Broken cup. But this is their glass. This is what matters to them. These are the things they own, and I guess it's custard that's coming out of this, and this is something very special that it's come out from their dishes, and here comes the chant: "A Merry Christmas to us all. God bless us," which all the family re-echoed. God bless us, everyone, which is a big line. Tiny Tim, his innocence, his love, inclusion, Christmas cheer, Christmas blessing, and love. Right? This is what we deserve. This is the world that we want, and we have Scrooge watching it the entire time. And what we're going to start to see is we have the Scrooge of the past, who was lamenting or feeling his pain, his loss. Now we have the Scrooge of the present, who's starting to see and look at others. And we'll see his reaction in the next video.